Okay, here we go. Um, so today I have with me Madalin. I'm going to let him tell you his last name because I tried to pronounce it when I was over there, and all his kids did was laugh at me. So, Madalin, could you tell us your last name?
Potoroaca.
Okay, just like he said it. But Madalin is a gentleman that I've known for probably the last 4 years in Romania. I've been over there twice and stayed with him and his family, and we've interacted because of education. And so I would like to take this time right now to just do a brief interview with him and inform those of you that are listening and watching just some of the things that are going on in Romania uh, itself, and also how Western Christian Academy is working in Romania as well. So, Madalin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, briefly, and to kind of set the stage as far as who you are?
Yeah. So I have 40 years. I've been married for 16 years with my beautiful wife, Agnia. Together, God has blessed us with 4 kids. Our oldest daughter, Aletea, is in ninth grade. Calvin, he's 12, he's in the sixth grade. Adamina, who's in the third grade, the fourth grade, and Edmund, he's only 3 years old. So I come from a non-Christian family initially. I had a really rough life and was experiencing with drugs and a lot of things until I was 20. And at 21, God very strongly came into my life and changed completely my heart and my life. I'm a biblical counselor and I'm also serving in a church. I'm teaching biblical counseling specifically on addictions and on sexuality related topics. My wife is an author. She's writing books for children and other types of books. And together we have an NGO, nonprofit organization called Set Free by the Truth, and we are involved in education. I'm one of the main leaders of the alternative education in Romania. Every year we have around 5, 6 conferences in different parts of the country and the national camp every year. So I'm also representing Western Christian Academy in Romania. We have an educational center here in Sibiu, where I live, and we have 2 other locations in Simeria and Iași that are connected to Western Christian Academy, where kids come and learn on site. But we also have more than 200 students that are learning from their home. And we hope that Western Christian Academy will be a blessing for more and more families. But now we live in very weird and strange times in Romania, and we hope that things will settle and Christian education will be an option for a lot of families.
Yeah, thank you. So, on that note, describe for us the education in general in Romania, and the many the diverse ways in which a student can be educated in Romania and its effectiveness.
So, Romanian education has been for a long time run by the state. Is state education almost nowhere in the world is doing a good job. But particularly in Romania, we are uh, we it's very weird. We have a lot of Olympics. Like this year, the gold medalist in the mathematics Olympics is Romanian. He won last year. We win on everything that's connected to hard science, to physics or compute or the Romanian hackers. Okay, but those are just a fringe. The general results are really bad, like the PISA test. We are normally the last or second from the bottom of the list. Um, by from around 10 years ago, uh, it became a movement of um, private schools. So that was a very big change that the government allowed private schools. Then we started having schools from other countries that would teach on a different curriculum appear on Romanian soil, like we do with Western Christian Academy. The homeschooling movement was very small when we started almost 13 years ago. In 2013, I hold my first conference, and that was the first time I spoke on homeschooling. But it started around 20 years ago, and it was small, and the government didn't pay a lot of attention. But some events, especially the pandemic, made the movement grow exponentially, and the government is now fighting to not only stop homeschooling, but any type of of alternative education, and especially Christian education. So this is also trying to limit educational centers or schools that are working on a Christian curriculum, and especially in an international language. So now we are trying to build a coalition from all the homeschoolers and the educational centers and the schools that we can uh, negotiate with the government, because they are now treating us as outlaws. And we have a family that has been convicted, for both the mother and the father received a 4 months in jail sentence for doing homeschooling, and they forced the parents to put the children back into the uh, state schools. And now we have other families that are in court that are facing charges. And through our organization, we are paying for the lawyers and we are supporting them. And this year is the first year we did a documentary about homeschooling. It's the first time we came out, and we made a website and a petition. It's called Let Us Learn. And we are trying to get the public to support alternatives, different ways of doing of doing education, not just homeschooling, but a lot of solutions. So if you want to know more about something specifically, you can ask me, but I'm trying just to present the landscape.
Yeah. So when we will have that link for that petition, associated with this video, and we'll also have the documentary attached onto this. I think they're very well done. It's encouraging for me to see you guys as Romanians taking those steps to, in essence, fight for the freedom of your education, and the freedom to basically educate your children the way that you choose as families, what's best for your family. So that's encouraging, and it's great. I'm glad that we can partner with you guys, in this fight. It's an ongoing fight that we constantly have here in the U.S. And yet the responsibility that we have to defend that right is ours alone. And so I'm encouraged to be able to partner with you guys in so doing that. So Christian education, Western Christian Academy does education from a biblical worldview. Why Christian education instead of just another alternative, general education?
So another thing that I forgot to mention is that because we were an atheist communist country, and because the revolution came by the initiative of the Christians, and when the revolution started, we were chanting on the streets, God exists, God exists. They put it into our constitution in the 90s, after the wall fell, like the communists fell. um, they put it into constitution that the education will be Christian, and we will teach our kids about God. So we have different schools that are considered Christian schools, but they still teach from an evolutionist perspective.
Mm.
They teach the same core curriculum that the state is telling you to teach. They just have the Christian name, and sometimes, maybe once a month, they have like a chapel and they have someone talk. So we want a Christian worldview curriculum that is looking at all of life through to Christ and have Him and the gospel centered. This is very rare in Romania. When I say very rare, is I don't think there are in all Romania maybe less than 500 students that are in institutions that have access to something like this. So this is very new, even for Christian schools. So to be able to give a curriculum like this that is being recognized by the state as a good curriculum, and to have the opportunity all the other schools to use it, even if the children study on site, would be a very big change and a very big help for the Christian families. Because like in the States, a lot of these kids that grow in these schools, is not a big difference if they are in a Christian school or in the state school. They are being catechized into evolutionist and naturalistic thinking. And when they grow up, they apostatize and they leave the church and they live like the world. So we need Christian education. It doesn't matter where it happens or if the parents are involved or they are teachers, but it needs, if it happens in the home or in a school or in an educational center, the idea is to have Christian curriculum, to have Christian teaching it, if it's parents or teachers, and then to have a Christian environment, to have a place where the values of Christianity are cherished and are lived out, not let them be wild while you talk about God, you know?
Yeah. So what are some of those values, to speak directly to the dichotomy of a Christian education, a biblical worldview based education versus, an education separate from God? What are some of those values that Christian education, intrinsically, directly provides for, ourselves as parents, as educators, as, in your biblical counseling, and as we still this into one generation to the next, because the Bible teaches us that these things should be passed on to one generation to the next generation. What are some of those, direct values that you see taking place?
Yeah. So I'm just speaking from my mind, but the first passage that my mind goes to is Deuteronomy chapter 6.
Mm.
And there, God is telling Israel before they go into Canaan, it says, Hear, o Israel, like Shema Israel, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. So, the first thing that the children need to see and to learn is to love God and to fear Him and to live for Him and to think with a worldview that is all of Christ for all of life, to see all the universe through this lens. Then it's with your strength. It's not only information. School teaches character. Teach to be
Mm.
an educated, a Christian that is educated means to have morals, to have values, to love what God loves and to hate what God hates, to speak for the voiceless, to love your neighbor as yourself, not just be a island in a world that is becoming more and more corrupt, to have a conscience, to have a social impact. So Romanians have been taught to, we have a saying here that the bow head, the sword does not cut. That means submission and, just bow down. I think that's a very bad Romanian way of thinking, and we need to be humble but also courageous and to
Mm.
fight for
Yeah.
what is righteous. And we want to raise a generation of future leaders, of people that will not just consume culture, but they will create a better and more godly culture, that will go into fields and transform those fields, that not only can repeat what they've been learned, but they can produce information, they can produce new knowledge that will revolutionize different fields. So this is very, very strange for me, because um, creativity and having a courage to say, I will go out of the crowd and be a creative thinker and not accept everything that the government tells me, or I will study history with a Christian lens. Imagine that in Romania there's no Christian history book. We have never looked to our Christian nation. We consider ourselves to be a Christian nation for 2000 years. One of the apostle Andrew, Peter's brother, has came to Romanian soil and brought the gospel into, in the first century. So, but we've never looked at our history through the Christian lens. I'm not talking about math and science here. Those
Right.
are, I'm
Right.
talking about at least our history, and it's full of Christian stories,
Mhm.
and so having a teaching not just content but character, uh, teaching how to love God, not just how to be moral, and having this cultural mandate to to spread the gospel and the kingdom around us and be light bearers. I think these are the three most important values that come to my mind.
Okay. I agree with you on the very first one you said is like, it's really the supremacy of God. I've always, said in my own children's lives, in students that I talk to, like, if we have a problem with in the beginning God, we have a problem with everything else that the Bible speaks about, the things of how we should live in our flesh morally. A lot of times we like to think that we're Christian because, we're morally good. Like I live better than, the guy that's in prison. I haven't murdered somebody. I don't constantly tell lies. I don't, I treat my neighbor, with respect and dignity. And so we create this moral Christianity. And yet at the end of the day, it goes beyond that, and it goes to really, I think, the transformative work of God through his spirit in our hearts that causes us to actually have the courage that you talked about, to have the sound reasoning, to have the discussions, and sometimes the difficult discussions with those in authority over us, with our neighbor, with our family members that there may be some disagreements on, but yet to have those difficult conversations to help expose the fallacies that exist because of tradition. And yeah, I agree with you. And there has to be a starting point, and then from there, everything else flows out in the way we should live, whether it's government, whether it's our families, whether it's our towns and our cities and doing business and how we speak to one another. So that's good. And it's, we model this as adults for that next generation. So speaking directly, how did you connect with Western Christian Academy?
So, Brother Clint is in the church that is pastored by a friend of mine, Andrei Sava. He's a Romanian, the same age as me. We were meeting as young, passionate Christians on the field, doing evangelizing in an area of Romania that has under 1% Christians there. So, as time went by and he went to America, we kept in contact. So a few years back, I don't know, 5 or 6 years back, there was another time when in the news they were talking a lot about education and Christian education, and I was appearing on different televisions talking and defending our right to do homeschooling or Christian education. So he contacted me and said, I have a brother in my church that is doing Christian education for a lot of years, and would you like to talk with him and meet with him? So I think that was 5 years ago, and after that, it took me like a year to pray and think and um, I know search the Lord's face if
Sure.
this was what He has in mind for us. And then I think in 2020 we enrolled our kids and a few other families. We wanted to try for a year and then to see how it goes and then move forward to where we are now. And um, yeah, the rest is history, like they say.
Yeah. And so hopefully we'll just keep on going in the way that God is preparing the way for us. So, So directly, how is Western Christian Academy meeting the needs of, say your family, let alone, but other, Romanian families, since we have a couple other locations now in Romania. And it seems like that everywhere you go in Romania or even Moldova, people are curious. They want to know. So how are we specifically, we're here in the US, you're in Romania, you're 10 hours away from us. Ahead of us actually, and how are we specifically meeting the needs that families have there?
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that I could focus on, but to understand the context here, one of our biggest need or fear is the fear of our own government. It's the fear of being taken to court. So to have a institution that is accredited in the states, that has teachers that works with you, that has a curriculum that is proven and has a 40 years of experience, that are willing to come here and talk with our government, and that have a Romanian representative that has a lawyer that can talk with the authorities and not be intimidated. So these are, I know we should have started with something else, but because of our Romanian context, because of the fear mongering that they keep
Yeah.
presenting, a lot of the families look at Western Christian Academy. And because I'm one of the most outspoken leaders in the homeschooling community and I represent this school, this is another thing that gives them, some uh, peace, that, okay, this guy is going to talk about if they do something bad, he's going to bark about it in different in different venues.
Yeah.
Another thing is the platform and the system is very well made. Even if we are 10 hours ahead, we don't see this as being a major problem. Or um, the I think there are so many advantages in the way a problem that if you choose this type of school, you have to make your own calendar. You have to organize your each subject. How often will you do it? You have to do the testing. You have to be unbiased with the testing as
Mhm.
a parent, which is not easy. So you have the documents and you have to keep the records and the each test what he did. And so with Western Christian Academy, they do all this for the family. They do the testing. They, especially when we talk about from 7th grade onward, it's this is very important that they are prepared for the world.
Yeah.
They keep in contact with different teachers, with different personalities, with different types of requests, and they learn how to manage these relationships. They learn, you know, I think it's a very a very good way of transitioning from being in the house and the parents being the only influences in your life, but having other Christians that are mature Christians that you can trust, that
Yeah.
help the family, help the parents, and get involved with the youth. I think I've heard in the last year a lot of times, just in the last year, that parents telling me if we were not in Western Christian Academy, I think we would have went back to the public system
Hmm.
because it was so hard, and because of the fear and the threats, and see that family get a conviction. I think if we didn't have this option, we would have went back, and we would have hated the choice, but we would have done that.
Yeah. So, well, good. It's so good to hear, and going over there twice, seeing and experiencing the impact that we're having and having just the intimate conversations with people, meeting and, going to people's homes for dinner and just, having a relationship. That's one of the things that I value so much here, even though we're a distance learning school, have been for 41 years. I value those interpersonal relationships. So whether or not they're, halfway around the world, or they're right here in our backyard. I think there's great value in those to establish, the value that other people have to us, and and us to them. And so, I look forward to, more of that, interaction and those type of relationships being established and built up. And, the people I meet that in Romania and when I've been there, I wouldn't have any clue that I could meet such great people, and such people that are passionate about life, about education, about the future for their kids, and knowing that we can partner with them and provide that value, not only just for life, but that biblical worldview foundation, supporting the work that the parents are doing and struggling at doing. So I got one more question here.
Okay.
Actually, I got two questions. You talked about a lot of the fears, in Romania, and one of those is, really, I think, and it could be the biggest one. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but really, parents really not knowing there's such inconsistency in the application of the law that from one town to the next, irregardless of the government, that they have no idea if the local magistrate is going to put pressure on them for homeschooling or attending a private school or anything like that. Would you say that that's like the greatest fear that parents are facing, the fear of being in prison, like the one family, or are there other fears that you can share with us?
I think the general fear is how authorities will treat us, because
Okay.
it might be that they don't recognize your diploma. It might be that they will threaten you. It might be that they would force you to go back to the public school. It might be that they would imprison you. But they haven't, even with that family, they gave their the conviction and then forced them to put the kids back into school, and then they redraw the conviction because they put the kids back into the school. They said that all the those kids were homeschooled for 3 years. They said those 3 years they've abandoned school. They tested the kids and they recognized the 3 years of homeschooling. And they, one of the girls, the oldest, was in the fourth grade, and they didn't put her back into she
Yeah.
finished fourth grade. They didn't put her in fifth grade. They put her in the eighth grade. you know so they recognized that the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh she did in homeschooling. They said, we don't recognize this. Then they recognized it and put her.
Yeah.
So because of all these inconsistencies, I think if things would be clear, we know if you do this, this will happen to you. It would be, at least you know what you're getting yourself into.
Right.
But it's a very strange relationship with the state. In other counties, in other parts of the country, there's no problem. In other parts, they're trying to intimidate you and or threaten you. That's why it's very important that we hire the lawyers in different parts of the country, and that costs a lot of money. But
Mhm.
if the families go with lawyers at the meetings with the authorities, things change. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe how different they approach a family when you have a lawyer with you. So one of the families that yesterday was in court was writing today a message on the big national group where we have hundreds of families, and his wife was so stressed out yesterday that she went to the ER and she was lost her wallet with her ID. So they went to court without having the ID,
Oh
and
boy.
she was writing a message saying that the cost of the stress and all this is taking a toll, because it's more than a year since they are dragging us every month to court and threatening us. And it's it's a sad situation, and I think we really need your prayers, and we need a lot of support, because honestly, like this year, I think we as an association, with the national camp and the conferences and with the homeschooling documentary and establishing new locations, and there were a lot of money involved in this.
Yeah.
And
Well, and that's one of
uh,
the things I think that as a leader of Western Christian Academy, the ability for us to maintain one of our core values, and that's the affordability of really structuring our tuition to meet the needs of Romanian families. And I think, that's one of the the greatest things that we could possibly do. In other words, you look at the Christian education, the Christian worldview, God gave us his son at his cost, not our
Mhm.
cost. And, there's an actual practical way of, look, your curriculum's got to be paid for, things like that. We got to at least pay for the cost of that. But yet the dividends that Christian education pays, there's no price you can put on that. And so I like the fact that at Western Christian Academy, we have made it financially affordable for Romanians. But outside of that, what are, real quick here before we're done, are there other ways that Western Christian Academy can support the families that, we've talked about a lot about some things that, behind the scenes that we're working towards, but are there any practical ways that, we can actually support Romanian families? Like we have our nonprofit scholarship fund that helps pay for tuition. Not only just for Romanian families, but any family or student that can't afford a Christian education. We're currently working on funding that in order to offer those scholarships. So naturally giving is one of those things that people can actually help us in order to support not only international students, but domestic students. But are there any other ways that Western Christian Academy can support students in Romania?
So again, I didn't know what questions you're going to ask me, so I'm just giving what I'm thinking now.
Which is great. This is
So
why it's just like, one of those real conversations.
yeah, so three things come to mind. One is try to sign the petition that we have in English,
Mhm.
and through Homeschooling Legal Defense Association or other big organization, try to put pressure on our government that they are treating American institutions like they are illegal on Romanian soil. So
Mhm.
America is our biggest partner on everything, on defense, on economics. So how can we treat Western Christian Academy, which is a Christian American school, as being illegal to have Romanian students? And I think a petition from the school and a lot of the families, and lobbying through the mechanisms that a democracy offers, I think to put that pressure would be one important thing. Another thing is, I think, to one of the things that a lot of the families in Romania are experiencing because of this fear is the feeling of being alone. So I
Mhm.
think it would be a good opportunity to try to make partners between one family in the state and one family in Romania that have kids with similar ages that could keep in contact, that the kids could write messages, like letters, but, we don't use letters anymore, like emails, that they could pray for one another once
Yeah.
a month, once a week, that, we could make partnerships like this, and they would know that not just a school or an institution, but another family that is
Yeah.
enrolled in the same school, that we have contact with them and we can pray with them, and
Right.
they would pray for us when something happens. I think this would be something that doesn't cost anything. It just costs time and, supporting, and moms can encourage other moms, and, I think this would be a good thing. And I was talking with Jeff when he was here that it would be great if we have like a exchange of experience, if we can bring some students from Western Christian Academy for 2 weeks and, be part of what we're doing with the national camp, and, you know, visit some of the locations. We have a wonderful country and we have very great families here. And maybe some of our students would be able to come to visit the States, or maybe come there to study. I think, we can partner in a lot of ways, but even coming here, I know it helped Jeff and the other staff from Western Christian Academy to be here for um, like this year a long time, and to experience different regions, and
Right.
also Moldova. And I think this is an eye-opening experience, and it leaves a lot of um, effects in the heart.
Yeah.
And I think it would be good in the future years to have more people come and be involved in different locations in the same time. And just we are in the early years of Christian educations in Romania, and what we are now building will last until the Lord comes,
Amen.
God willing. And for our children and our children, what we are now building will see fruits in 40 years, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, I've really enjoyed, my trips over there, and, what started out as, like, well, it looks like I got to make a trip to Romania. It's now looks like it's a yearly trip that I got to make. And I look forward to making those trips, and then actually including my own children, my young adult children now who are all out of high school, giving them opportunity to experience a different culture, different people, and be able to open up, expand, their view of their world that they're growing up in. And so these are good things that, I've thought of myself that we want to work towards, definitely in the future, in the near future, if possible. So thank you for this opportunity to chat with
Thank
you
you
and
also.
share these ideas with others.